There can't be many of us out there who don't know the 1976 film Rocky, starring Sylvester Stallone. It's a classic. I've loved it from the first time I saw it. However, I'm a bit conflicted about this particular release, which is the steelbook version, and I'm delighted to have it. I think it's a lovely steelbook, but I'm conflicted a little because the previous Blu-ray release, which I believe was mastered from a 4K, is so good. When I first put this on after watching the 4K, I actually thought this one was better, but going through all the settings on my new video projector, which I showed in my last video and will do an update on soon, I went through all the settings and soon had everything looking better on the 4K than the Blu-ray. I do think it's marginal though, so keep watching to find out what my final conclusions are. Having been reminded of how good the Blu-ray of Rocky is, I got the whole box out and went through 1 to 6. Didn't watch them all, just snippets here and there, and they all look pretty good. One point that I thought I should note, because it's probably the same on the 4K, Rocky 2, the opening goes back to the end fight of Rocky to replay the events on that, and clearly that was taken from a dupe negative, because the image quality of that, when it came on, I thought, oh dear, this one isn't from a 4K master or a good master. But as soon as that fight sequence is over and it goes into the new film, that's obviously the new negative, the pristine negative, and that one looks fabulous too. So that's something possibly to bear in mind with all these new 4K releases of the Rocky films coming out right now. I found myself going backwards and forwards between the Blu-ray of the first film and the 4K, and I got a bit bamboozled about it all, and so I thought it must be the new video projector. I'm not getting the best out of it. Went through all the settings, made the 4K look as good as I could, went back to the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray was still marginally better perhaps, and gradually I got it worked out the 4K was as good as, and then possibly better than the Blu-ray. But being a bit bamboozled and thinking I got something wrong, I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll have a look at it on my telly. And I found exactly the same thing on there, and I was backwards and forwards again. It really is too close to call at times. So I thought the best solution was, I know my Optoma UHD 550X video projector extremely well. Let's put it on that. Same results. So I think this one on 3 systems is pretty close to cool, but I am chuffed to bits to have this lovely steelbook, as I mentioned earlier. It's possibly the only one of the Rocky films I will get in 4K, and having been reminded of how good they all are on Blu-ray, it really does seem like maybe there isn't much point in going the whole hog with them. But I suppose it depends on how much you like these films, and also the temptation of those lovely steelbooks. Another consideration is that this disc does come with Dolby Vision, and I don't have that on either of my systems, so I can't check that for you. But what I do know is that Rocky was always a bit of a grainy film. It's shot in Philadelphia in 1975, and it deliberately had that gritty look, and the way to get that is a bit of a grainy film stock, so it works very well in that regard. Some sequences are grainier than others, and that can be down to several reasons, most commonly less light than other scenes. But of course most of this is in dull light or indoors in the darkness and with spotlights on the boxing, so you just have to take it as you see it, and bear in mind it's not going to be the best looking film you've ever seen, but I do think it's a good looking film. There are quite a few out of focus shots, and 1 or 2 of those that it's out of focus on one side and not so out of focus on the other side of the image. So some people would think that's down to the transfer. It's not, it was how it was shot at the time. So there's nothing that can be done about that. We've just got to accept it for what it is. The film runs for 2 hours, has an aspect ratio of 1:85 to 1 approximately, and comes with DTS HD 5.1 sound. Like many 4K releases, it comes with a Blu-ray as well, and so many of us will have 2 copies of that disc because it's identical to the previous release, but it is packed with extras. I didn't watch them on this occasion, I only watched them all a couple of years ago. I thoroughly enjoyed it, particularly all about Garrett Brown using his new Steadicam invention for the first time, when Sylvester Stallone is running along the dockside at a sprint and he's keeping up, there's no shaking on the image at all. And likewise when he's running up those steps to overlook Philadelphia video from the town hall or the local government buildings, whatever it is. Garrett Brown is running up there with a Steadicam in hand, and there's hardly a shake on the camera. Really was quite historic and great to see. Looks just as good now as it did all those years ago. So plenty of information on here, as I recall, from Garrett Brown about how all that came about and some of his later inventions. Well worth watching. A brilliant cast playing believable characters in a wonderful setting, along with the most evocative music score you could ever wish for, possibly the most evocative and memorable of all time, but there'll be plenty of debate about that, I'm sure. No wonder this film won the Best Picture Oscar in 1976. It also won for Best Director and Best Editing, and it's easy to see why. It's not perfect, but it's not far off. Some people won't be happy that this isn't the most pristine film you're ever going to see, but it's just right. Philadelphia looks beautiful with that film grain, and like Get Carter that we had released last year on 4K, it's another window into a time gone by. A terrific film and a great steelbook. I'm very pleased to have it, but you have to make your own mind up on this one, I'm afraid. Can't really guide anyone more than I have. Take a look at a few other reviews. I think other people may not be quite so kind about this one, but there will be reasons for that, and you have to temper everything, I think. Expectations might be a little too high because the Blu-ray was so good, but whatever you decide, I don't think you're going to be too disappointed, because let's face it, this is another great film from possibly the greatest decade for movies that there ever was. Now, there's another can of worms I've opened, another debate coming up, I'm sure, but the 1970s really does seem to be something special now I look back on it. Right, I mentioned this recently. This is a review copy of Cursed Films, and I got this because I was so impressed with the stream I got access to for this review, and so I said for my viewers I need the Blu-ray so I can take a look at that. Now, this is actually the press release that came with it, so it doesn't come with anything in this pack, but it was interesting when I was in FOP recently. I didn't see it when I was there, but when I looked at the video, I think I saw a whole bunch of these on the end rack or something on the ground floor, so it's clearly something that's being pushed out there. I'm really enjoying it. I've seen all 5 of the episodes. They're half an hour each, and they are for 5 great films. It's The Omen, The Exorcist, Poltergeist, The Crow, and Twilight Zone the movie. I've watched 4 of the 5 episodes on this Blu-ray so far, only Twilight Zone the movie to go. I think that one is the best of the 5 actually, but they all look great. 235 to 1, 240 to 1 the aspect ratio. Sound is great, 5:1. Well worth a watch, and I think I can recommend that one more easily than the 4K of Rocky, but I think I prefer the 4K of Rocky simply because it's such a special film. Now, we went to see Tenet last week at the IMAX, and I suspect my video for that will be out already by the time I get this up, a bit up in the air as I record this, but I thought I'd give you a report on that on here, because in that video it's going to be more about the projection booth, and I thought I'd tell you that I think this, along with Interstellar, is one of the 2 most impressive cinema screenings I've ever attended. IMAX 1570 film just has to be seen to be believed, and to see it, how it runs through the projector and gets taken up on the spools, just unbelievable. 1.7 meters a second. Well, I go into all that in the IMAX video, but I think you've got to see Tenet as it was meant to be seen to fully appreciate it. I probably still can't tell you exactly what it's about. I haven't worked out all the nuances, but I met subscriber Mahmood there after the film. He said, "I've now come up with something else. I think the little boy in this is actually Neil, one of the protagonists." Now, what's he talking about? Then after a couple of minutes, I thought, maybe he's got a point. So I came home, put it on. I thought, oh no, he's right. I've got to watch this again to work it all out. But anyway, that's just a little detail on Tenet. If you haven't seen it, you won't know what I'm talking about. If you have seen it, you probably still won't know what I'm talking about. So we'll just have to leave that for now. When they screen it again at the IMAX, maybe we'll all get there again, have another big discussion. So anyway, I think that does it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating content like this. Until the next video, bye bye for now.